Welcome to the AdSense Flippers Podcast. Are you sick and tired of gurus who have plenty of ideas but are short on substance? Worried that ebook you bought for $17.95 won't bring you the personal and financial freedom you long for? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others in their pursuit of niche profits without the bullshit. Straight from your hosts, Justin and Joe of AdSense Flippers.
Hey everyone, glad to have you on the AdSense Flippers podcast. This is our first ever. We're really excited to be putting it out, and we're excited to be talking to you today. Just want to cover a bit about the program, what we're going to be looking at today. Just to start off, we're going to go over some updates, some news, and some talking points that Joe and I had and we wanted to cover. Next, we're going to get into kind of the meat and the potatoes, basically the bulk of the podcast and the reason that we're talking to you today. And today we're starting off our podcast series with an amazing first interview with a guy that we absolutely love, adore, and read on a regular basis. So you won't want to miss that. Finally, we're going to wrap up the podcast with one of our absolute best tips or resources. We're going to share that with you, and hopefully you can get some value out of that and move forward. The plan with our podcast is to be extremely fast. We want to move fairly quick pace to kind of get you through it and get you as much content as you can without any of the crap that comes along with some of the affiliate offers and stuff you normally hear. So, Joe, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Justin. It's great to finally be on this program, get everything rolling. I know we had some technical issues to iron out, and, man, I'm just happy to get the content out there because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, man, what a mess, huh? Trying to get a podcast up and running. I mean, from the technical details to getting an editor to kind of putting everything together, it's outrageously time-consuming, but I'm glad that we have it all now, up and rolling and getting ready to go. Joe, thanks a lot for the technical stuff, man. You know that's not my area.
Yeah, Justin, I know that's not your area, and I love taking care of that stuff. It requires some research, requires some testing, but I think we have it down now, and hopefully everyone is hearing us loud and clear. If you do have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please make sure to leave them for us in the comments section down below. We'll look to improve any of the technology so that you can hear us better. So, Justin, now that we got this podcast up and running, a lot of people are going to be wondering, why exactly are we doing it?
Well, one of the reasons we're doing the podcast is to really get our information out there in kind of a different medium, to help expand on some of the points I think that we've made that aren't as clear to some people, and also share some of the stuff we're reading, some of the people we're following, and some of the people that we're working with that we think are helping our business tremendously, and that can help some of the listeners' businesses as well. Because it's a really good medium to be able to explain that information and to kind of get that across where we're not necessarily able to do that in the blog. Do you know what I mean?
There's a lot of great podcasters out there, but I would say our particular inspiration comes from two big-time podcast people. Dan and Ian over at Lifestyle Business Podcast, which is an awesome podcast. You should check it out. I think it's in its 77th episode now. They have great stuff going on over there. We met up with Dan in Puerto Galera, as many of you know, and we were really inspired by his podcast. We were on the show. We really liked the format. Then you have Virtual Business Lifestyle, Chris Stucker. He's up in Cebu in the Philippines. Another guy that we would love to emulate in terms of his outsourcing model. He is the outsourcing god of the Philippines, and we hope to be there one day.
Yeah, Joe, Pat Flynn. I mean, I've been following his podcast, and one of the ones that really stuck out for me was the one that helped him kind of determine. It was the guy from Social Triggers. Really helped him determine how he could better convert on his blog, and I thought that was just amazing. And if they were able to put that kind of useful information out, I mean, if we can get the same kind of people on our program and help our listeners, I think we're going to help them go far, and we're really going to help ourselves out as well in the process. So I know that Pat once mentioned that starting the podcast is one of the best things he did for his business, and I didn't get that the first time I heard it, but now that we're getting involved in this and we're starting to talk about it and we're starting to get some feedback from other people, I can see how that would be the case. You know what I mean?
I do, and plus, getting a podcast out there, I feel, is almost easier once you have the technology out of the way than a blog post. You can just speak. That's always a lot easier than writing.
So, Joe, our business deals with AdSense, it deals with selling sites, it deals with potentially buying sites, it deals with monetization, it deals with internet marketing. What types of things will we be covering in the podcast, do you think? What kind of things should our listeners expect from us?
Well, one thing we won't be doing, Justin, is we won't be revealing our niches on this show. If you're listening right now expecting us to reveal all 900 sites that we have, you've come to the wrong spot. But if you are looking for the method that we use to get there, how we got there, the tools we use, how we're earning this money, you've come to the right place. Because that's what it's really all about, right, Justin?
Yeah, man. I think what's important is to share both our successes and our failures. And, I think personally I learn a lot, especially when some of the people are talking about like what, they failed on, where they made mistakes. As long as we continue to be extremely honest with both ourselves and our listeners and explaining what we think is working and what's not, I think we're going to grow and they're going to hold us accountable to what we're doing and make sure that what we're doing is making sense.
The interaction is going to be key. And in that vein, Justin, what kind of ways can people contact us? I mean, how can they actually get on the show?
The easiest way is I'm always on Twitter. Just look us up on Twitter at AdSense Flippers, and you can contact me there. Let me know what you thought about the show. If you'd like to chat back and forth, we can do that there. Later on, we're going to have an 800 number people can call into, and they can actually board blips that we'll get on the show. Or if they have any tips or tricks they want to share, we can put them on as well. So, we really want to be able to get some involvement. We're looking for interview opportunities. We have a couple of really good ones potentially lined up. I'm excited about that, and if we can get that worked out, we'll have them on and have some pretty amazing shows in the near future.
Great, Justin.
So, Joe, buddy, what's going on with Market Samurai, man?
Justin, that's a great question because, as you know, we used to highly recommend Market Samurai, right? It was our premier keyword research tool for finding niche websites. We loved it. Our people used it. We highly recommended it to our readers. But in the last couple of months, it's really become a drag. I mean, it's slow. It's not working. Support is not as good as it used to be. And it just is not helpful anymore in finding micro niche websites.
Dude, I was a huge fan. How many people did I tell about Market Samurai going, oh my God, this keyword research tool is amazing. This is going to get you everything you need, find you all the keywords you need. And I loved it. I still do, actually. It's just too slow, man. It's not getting us the niches we need and definitely not getting them fast enough for us. So
yeah, it definitely had the best features and was the most robust keyword research product out there. But I think it's been toppled. I really do. And the reason why is not because of its features and not because of its glamorous UI, but I do think that this new product we're going to talk about in the interview is the best thing out there.
So what is it, buddy? What's the deal? What's the product? Spit it out.
Longtail Pro from Spencer over at Niche Pursuits. And we're going to have Spencer on the program right now. We're going to do an interview with him. He's going to talk about Niche Pursuits, his blog, and the development of Longtail Pro and how he came up with it.
Yeah, first off, I'll just say I'm a huge fan of Spencer. I've been reading him for months. I've read him religiously. I've read him up, down, sideways, read the comments. I mean, the guy is on point. So if you're in our niche, if you're doing what we're doing, looking to create sites and monetize via AdSense, you have to be paying attention to this guy, and you must have heard of him. So we're so excited to have him on the program because in the internet marketing arena in general, there's very few people who I think like kind of match our values and like what we think is important, and I think Spencer gets it. You know what I mean?
I do know exactly what you mean. So without further ado, let's get into this interview.
The AdSense Flippers Podcast continues.
Hey guys, Justin and Joe here with AdSenseFlippers.com. We've got our first podcast, we've got our first interview, and it's with someone I love to talk to. Guy's really bright, really sharp. He's from NichePursuits.com. This is Spencer. We've been a big fan of his and followed his progression. Makes a ton of money with niche AdSense sites, doing extremely well, and is just a really cool all-around guy. So just want to pass this off to you, Joe. You have anything to say?
Thanks, Justin. Well, I'm very happy to have Spencer on the program, too, and we've been very excited about his site and what he's doing over there. Spencer, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Justin and Joe. I appreciate you having me on your first podcast.
Oh, the pleasure is all ours. Without further ado, we'll get a little bit into your background here and a little bit about Niche Pursuits. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with niche websites.
Yeah, it's almost one of those things that I kind of stumbled on, really. I was like a lot of people out there. I went to college and had my whole career sort of planned, and sort of on the side recently after I graduated, I started dabbling in sort of building websites just for fun. I worked a full-time job in the financial services industry for quite a while. Just really wanted to see if I could, for fun almost, get a website up and running just to kind of figure out the whole internet thing. and taught myself a tiny bit of HTML. Back in the day, I didn't know about WordPress or anything. Learned a little bit of HTML, got a website up, then piqued my interest into, how do websites actually rank in the search engines and how do they actually make money? And that sort of began a journey that spanned a few years sort of learning about websites. And, in the meantime, I built a few on the side. Again, I was working a full-time job for about 5 or 6 years after I graduated from university. But yeah, just kind of on the side as a hobby, started dabbling in things. And then wasn't until I failed on several of my websites that I really decided, you know what, I need to figure out what's going to work and what doesn't. It was really at that point that I sort of realized I wasn't targeting a specific enough topic on my websites. I was building great content websites, big things like credit repair and large financial topics.
The high-paying stuff, ton of searches, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the super competitive niches.
Yeah.
I didn't really grasp that. Sort of figured I've got to target these high traffic, high paying keywords if I want to make lots of money. And so that's what I did, and I failed miserably. So it wasn't until I sort of had this shift in my thinking that, you know what, if I can just rank for a small enough term and just make a little bit of money, then I might be able to duplicate that process. And so I built a couple of small websites that were not real competitive, and they each started making me about $20 a month. Google AdSense, because it was the easiest thing to do.
Yep.
And that really was the mental shift that I found. I was like, whoa, I'm now making $40 a month. Why don't I just duplicate that?
Started to take off for you, right? You were like, okay, it looks like I got a process working. Let me kind of expand it.
Exactly. I decided I'm going to go big with this. This is working for me. Let's just build a ton of these little niche websites, and that's exactly what I've done. It's been a couple of years. I quit my job earlier this year, and so things are going really well.
Awesome, Spencer. Let me ask you this, because we get this question a lot too. We're particularly good at building these niche sites, right? Like, we're good at that. We've got that down. People ask us, why don't you expand into this? Why don't you do affiliate marketing? Why don't you, do some Amazon stuff? My question for you would be, like, do you focus on a few small areas you're good at, or should you expand into 8, 10, 12 different niches and find one that works really well for you? Which approach do you think is better? Focus on a couple or really shoot for a bunch and find the one that works?
Well, that's kind of what I did initially I just didn't have any one particular niche that I was in. I just sort of built lots of sites on lots of different niches. But it came to the point where one of my sites was doing better than the others. And so then I did stick within that same niche, and now I have a couple of dozen sites all in that one niche because I know it can perform well. So my advice on that point is do find what's working, and then if you can expand either within that same niche or sort of stick with the same process you're using, that's probably your best bet for success.
Let me ask you this too. Like, notice that you're looking at like storage unit auctions and some other things that are like non-website related. Do you give up what you think is working with the niche sites and do that, or do it in addition to? What's your goal there with niche pursuits specifically?
Yeah, niche pursuits definitely is. If people read that originally, and this is still the goal, originally I had wanted to sort of discuss and write about lots of different ways of making money outside of my niche websites. You mentioned storage unit auctions. I looked at building iPhone apps, other things. The point was to show how I could try to find a way that I could diversify my income out of just one thing. At this point, I haven't done too much just because the niche websites have done so well, putting a lot of effort into that, but I still would like to find something outside of niche websites just so I can feel like my income is diversified a little bit better. Recently I did release some software, Longtail Pro, which is helping to diversify my income out of just niche websites. And eventually I'm still planning on building an iPhone app or two to give that a go, just so I can feel like I can have a few businesses in my portfolio that are all bringing in some money.
Yeah, and we're looking to diversify in that sense. What's the difference between a niche and an authority site?
It probably comes down to a couple of things, and it's more than perhaps just the amount of content on the website. I think that's one distinguishing factor, is that a niche website is maybe a smaller site with 5 to 10 pages of content. An authority site is something with a couple hundred pages of content. One distinguishing factor, but also more specifically, an authority site may cover a little bit broader niche than some of these smaller niche websites, and is a website that eventually and ideally is a site that is a destination site for visitors, something where visitors either visit on a regular basis or is seen really as an authority within that niche, meaning it's a place where maybe other websites within that same niche refer to or send visitors to, something that's really looked at as the site to go to for that topic.
What would you consider a thin site, something that's just too small?
That's a tough question, because some of the searches that are done in Google, I mean, we all know that people are searching for millions of things every day, and some of the things they're searching for can be answered in a paragraph, or one page is enough to give that visitor everything and more that they were searching for. So it's hard to say, what is enough and what isn't enough. I like to typically start off my sites with about 5 pages of content. And I feel like that, for lots of the niches that I'm going into, that's enough of a site to answer sort of the questions and to cover the topic in detail to give the user all the information they need. I don't know if there's an exact answer for that. I don't know if you guys have an exact answer for what's too small and what isn't, but that's sort of my thoughts, at least on the topic.
Yeah, I think that, if a site doesn't answer the searcher's query, if it doesn't really get into the meat and potatoes of what they're looking for, that may be a little too thin. I mean, it doesn't have to answer every question, but at least the info that a person searching for that particular niche would want. I think that's our impression of a thin site. How long does it take for you to decide whether or not that particular keyword or that particular niche is going to work or not? Like, how long do you wait before you decide to add content to it to really beef it up?
Some sites are obvious. They will start ranking fairly quickly and start earning money. Those are the easy ones. Within a month or something, a lot of times sites will start ranking well, and you can tell that you have a winner on your hands. And so I would go ahead and start adding content at that point. But then the majority of sites take a little bit longer to start ranking and to start showing any potential. I typically will wait, sort of as my rule of thumb, about 90 days. Usually within about 90 days or 3 months, you can see roughly which sites are going to perform well. Within 90 days, if the site is still at ranking on the 8th or 9th page of Google and really hasn't moved anywhere, the chances are that it might take more effort than it's worth, I guess, to get that site, onto page 1. So that's sort of my rule of thumb, I guess.
I think you mentioned on nichepursuits.com, but you talked about the concept of a winner or a loser, a winner or a dud, right? And that some sites you create and they just work, and others you create and they just don't, for whatever reason, right? You have no idea, but it just doesn't work. So you think 90 days gives you a good realistic time frame before you determine the winners from the losers?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I use for the most part. I leave the sites up, and if things change, I look at it. But really, I try to sort of actively build links and look at the sites for about 90 days to decide whether they're a winner or they're a loser.
We have AdSenseFlippers.com, and we do that to blog about our experiences, to help others, to kind of just share the journey, because really we had nothing to lose, and it's really taken off for us. People appreciate the honesty and what we're doing there. We do something. I mean, we sell our websites, right? We sell our websites there and on Flip, and we mention that to our readers and people that follow the site. Why do you blog about your experiences? Why aren't you just doing it quietly, making a ton of money? Some of those other guys that are just quietly in the background killing it. You're killing it, but you're doing it publicly. What's the purpose of that, man?
I guess I often ask myself that same question. But the blog is great, but it is a lot of work. So sometimes I think, man, I should just build out tons of these sites all by myself and not tell anybody about it. I quit my job, like I said, in March of this year. My blog is really a way for me to connect with people. in general. If I didn't have my blog, I'd literally be sitting in my room, never talking to anybody all day long. So the blog really is an outlet for me to both interact with people online, but also to be able to teach other people, because I know that there's a lot of blogs out there. There's a ton of either good or bad resources out there, and I think people do appreciate things like what you're doing on AdSense Flippers and what I'm doing. We're just really trying to say it the way it is. So I just kind of write about what I'm doing, and I try to be as upfront as possible to hopefully teach people a little bit, but also give them a realistic picture of what this business is all about. So those couple of things, and then obviously there is the benefit that as I build my audience, that does open up other opportunities if I do to either start selling my websites or doing other things. Now just recently started selling some software. It does open up a lot of opportunities as well.
What do you think is the best, most actionable piece of advice for someone just starting out?
I would give two pieces of advice. The first piece of advice, in my opinion, would to really be learn keyword research, learn how to analyze the competition on Google to determine if a keyword is worth going after or not. I mean, that is the one thing that if somebody wants to do well in this business, they need to nail that down. They need to understand keyword research. They need to understand why websites are ranking. And if you get that, really everything else, honestly, is almost just details. It's all about picking those keywords to find the winners and the losers. So that's sort of my direct piece of advice. But my sort of caveat to that, my second piece of advice, to just go after the business strategy that makes sense to you. We're here talking about a business strategy that works really well for us, but the best piece of advice is for somebody to sit down in their own mind and figure out a business strategy that works for them. And it may not even be niche websites. It may be some variation of that or something different. Because if you get in the habit of just following what other people do and trying to follow step by step what other people are saying they do, you can fall into a lot of traps. But if you sit down and think about things on your own and do things that make sense in your own mind, you're more likely to succeed. So that would be my kind of couple pieces of advice.
Yeah, Spencer, I totally agree with that. When we started off doing keyword research, I completely screwed that up. I made a big mess of it, and we had to figure it out. We had to kind of get a process and something that worked for us. And the second thing, we just recently mentioned this to someone else, but just because a process works for us or works for you doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for someone else. I mean, they can follow it step by step, but there may be luck, there may be other things involved that lead them to not have success. So finding something that they think does make the most sense and probably getting bits and pieces from us and from you is the most effective strategy, because then they're doing it on their own. They're doing it in a way that they think will be effective, and I think that's great. But I want to transition a bit to talk about Longtail Pro really quick. Now, I'll tell you, Spencer, honestly, I was pretty happy with Market Samurai. Joe was saying, let's check out Longtail Pro. Let's give it a shot. I was happy with what we had, but, once he started playing with it, he said, man, you got to check this out. So I started using it for like first page, competition research, and found it to be killer. Way faster, much better in that department. But tell us a little bit about how you came up with the idea for Longtail Pro and a little bit about what it is exactly.
Yeah, Longtail Pro really came about because honestly, I wasn't happy with the other keyword research tools out there. When I do keyword research, I want to look at as many seed keywords as I can at once, or a lot of them. So I was like most people. I was out there. I was using Market Samurai. And with that tool, you punch in one seed keyword. You wait for it to sort of generate a list of up to 800 keywords. And then you have to go in and filter and do all sorts of things. And it can take literally 15, 20 minutes just to look at one seed keyword.
Oh, slow, man. It's miserably slow.
Yeah, and then after all that time of analyzing all these things, after looking at one seed keyword, you're probably not going to find a winner. Maybe you'll get lucky, but really you need to look at lots of keywords. And that's what I was doing. I was spending hours, just looking at 5 or 6 keywords to see if I could find something to build a website on. And so that really got my wheels spinning. I was just, there's got to be a faster way to do this. Eventually, after trying out tons of keyword tools, I decided I just needed to build my own. And I figured that if I was frustrated with the keyword tools that were out there, that other people would be interested in the same thing. So I really built it for myself. And so what Longtail Pro does is sort of what I wanted it to do. But at the same time, it meets the needs of a lot of out there. So that's initially was just out of frustration.
How long did the development process take?
I had Longtail Pro in its current state. It took, I'm trying to think, I probably began in about January of this year and just released the full version just this month. So almost 10 months of building the software. So it was a pretty comprehensive project. And again, for those out there that maybe don't know, I am not a programmer by any means at all. Like I said, I can barely do any HTML at all. So this was a big undertaking for me. I actually found a programmer on elance.com is where I found my lead programmer and hired him. And he has been great. Also, we have several other programmers underneath him that are working on the project as well. So this is, it's a completely outsourced project that I essentially told them, this is what I want to see, this is what I want it to do. And so, yeah, it's been about 10 months that now it's finally up and running.
And your experience with outsourcing was great. You didn't have to go through a couple of different developers. The first guy you picked worked out and was no problem.
Well, I wish I could say it was that easy. Yeah, I did. I don't know if you noticed, I sort of slipped in there this current version of Longtail Pro. There was a previous version that did get up and running that I had hired a different programmer previously, but I really didn't know what I was doing. It was my first sort of software project, and he was a good programmer. He wasn't able to keep up with any changes that were needed and things like that. And so the first version, which I built at the end of last year, it worked for a while, but as soon as it broke, he couldn't keep up with any changes and things like that. So it wasn't full success. So I really had to start all over again from scratch. It really was the best thing, trust me. I could go into a lot of details, but essentially I had hired too cheap a programmer. He was good, but he was in India, and the communication was difficult. The first version was, a learning experience. I learned from that. I hired a top-notch programmer who's here in the U.S. I can call him on the phone at any time, and he has several programmers under him. And so what I have going on now is great. I learned a ton from my sort of first go-around with Longtail Pro, but now definitely I've done it right.
Well, Spencer, I can tell you as a non-technical guy, like trying to start that sounds like I'd be scared, honestly. Like it's ridiculous. So trying to get that rolling, I think, is pretty cool. And the fact that you got it out, got a first version, it sucked. You had to fix it, got it down, working, I think is amazing. And we really appreciate the fact that you've taken some feedback from us in beta and have improved it. It's looking good. It's ready for the public. So I think that's really awesome. How do you plan on expanding Longtail Pro and adapting?
Absolutely. This is a long-term project for me. It's doing well. I plan on obviously continuing to reinvest and improve the product. And so there's even been more feedback from you guys I know that I haven't quite implemented yet, and some of those things I actually do plan on implementing. At this point, I have the core product that I'm just making as perfect as possible. Some of the things that we want to do are ways for people to calculate their own winning keywords, sort of put in almost a formula builder where you can say the keyword has over a certain amount of monthly searches, has over $1 cost per click, and has this amount of title competition. Those are the things that you want. You can build that in a formula and mark the keyword as a winning keyword or something of that nature. So we want to input some formulas that will take into account the user's input and allow them to do that, and also do that That's in the keyword research portion. We also want to do that in the competitor analysis portion, where users can input, for example, highlight all the listings that have a page rank of 0 and have less than 10 backlinks or something like that, and really make it driven on what the user wants to see to highlight certain keywords.
We love that, Spencer. So many tools like have kind of their own sub-parameters on telling you what they think is a winner and what they think is a loser. But like if you've been doing this on any scale or doing it at all, you start to figure out what's profitable for you. So being able to determine that inside the tool, I think, is killer. That's going to own, man.
You know, that's almost why I haven't added sort of my proprietary highlighting or formulas, because I've seen the other tools that do that. When I look at them or use them, I really don't know what their calculations are. So they might be saying, this is a winning keyword, but I look at it and go, well, no, it's not, based on what I see. And I think that makes a lot of people not do as well in this business, is because they sort of take the feedback they see from software and they really don't know where that feedback is calculated from. That's one thing that we want to add. You know, we're going to also be looking at adding the ability to add some proxies so that you can search for more things a little bit quicker and things of that nature. So there's some other improvements as well that we're looking at.
One of the questions I have, especially for products that you have to buy and you buy it up front and there's no, I'm not paying you again later, it's a one-time deal, it's done, right? I wonder why you didn't attach even like a $5 a month fee. One of my concerns with buying it up front would be that in 3 months, you're no longer supporting it. So what's going to keep you supporting it 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the road?
The reality is this market is huge, that there are lots of people that I haven't even approached that don't even know about Longtail Pro. And so as I continue to market the software, there's going to be a ton of new users. And so that's one thing, is that, you know, right now I'm in a tiny sort of little segment here that as the word, there's going to be more and more users, which obviously is bringing in that income so that I can reinvest that. But as well, there's always new people coming into this market. There's so many people that are learning about internet marketing. Say there's 1 million people out there today that maybe are interested in something like this. A year from now, there's going to be another 250,000 that even interested in this market today. So it's a huge market and it's ever expanding. So that's sort of why I feel like I'm able to do that.
Why are you giving Longtail Pro away with just one simple flat fee, which seems to us like you could charge a small monthly fee and people would be willing to pay that?
I appreciate that feedback as well. At this point, it's a one-time purchase. I can always look at readjusting that in the future if I need to. I don't plan on changing it, but I may, and this is nothing that's coming right away, but I may add some premium features that perhaps I might add a monthly fee to, and that could be a number of different things. But I am sort of thinking about sort of add-ons that maybe I could add to Longtail Pro, that if somebody really wants this add-on feature, they would be willing to pay a monthly subscription to. So down the road, I may be charging an ongoing fee for certain things, but the way it is now, it's working well. I'm going to stick with the one-time fee.
I can tell you, we're big fans of Longtail Pro. We're using it on a regular basis. We've trained our keyword research agents, and we've basically siphoned them off of Market Samurai and pushed them over to Longtail Pro. So we're using it. We know you use it. So, I mean, this isn't a tool that, you know, you kind of whip together to sell to the, you know, Warrior special offer kind of crew. I mean, this is an app we use on a regular basis. And I'll tell you, I much prefer, and I know because we've talked about this before, I much prefer marketers that are selling what they actually use. And so it's refreshing to see someone who uses the tool, built something for themselves, and is now offering that to other people. And we're fans as well. We'll continue to use it as well. So I'd also mention at the bottom of this, we're going to put a link to Longtail Pro for sure, so people can pick it up if they want. We're also going to put a video in with some tips and tricks that we found on how to use Longtail Pro. So hopefully some people find that helpful and help them decide like how to use it and some of the tricks you can use to use it effectively. I want to go over really quick, Spencer, you know, some of the things we talked about in the call that I think is actionable, that I think is useful. One of the most difficult things to do is to figure out how to find keywords and analyze the first page. So it's critical to get important with that for anyone just starting out any of our listeners that are considering building some niche sites, and also to take bits and pieces from us, from you, and from others like Pat Flynn on how to build these sites, but to really make it their own rather than just copy a process. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that's spot on there, because somebody might start in this market listening to what we have to say, but they might come up with a great idea that we never thought of, or they might do things a little bit differently than we do, and they can expand their success beyond, what we're teaching. So I think it's so important to sort of, think outside the box, do things differently and on their own, that they can really hopefully achieve the most success possible for themselves.
That's one of the things we love about what you're doing as far as like explaining exactly how to do this keyword research stuff. I know a lot of people struggle with it. Building a tool that helps them get the keywords that are going to make them money is key, man. And best of luck to you, Spencer. You've had a ton of success over there at Niche Pursuits. I'm going to continue following you, man. I'm a fan. It's great to interview you, but we'll keep checking in with each other. I love the fact that it seems like we're kind of aligned on some of our thinking in marketing. So I think it's pretty cool. And I hope to learn a lot more from you as we continue to grow forward.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. It's a huge compliment to hear that you guys use Longtail Pro on a regular basis. So I appreciate hearing that very much. At the same time, I'm huge fans of you guys over there at AdSenseFlippers.com. I love what you're doing there. I keep thinking that I need to try out selling some of my other niche sites on Flippa. So I may be dabbling with that here in the next little while, and I'm sure I can pick up plenty of tips from you guys there. So we'll definitely stay in touch.
This is the AdSense Flippers Podcast.
Well, that's the interview with Spencer from Niche Pursuits. Big thanks to him for coming on the show, man. I love what he had to say. The guy is on point. So if you haven't checked out his blog or haven't checked out Longtail Pro, you need to get over there and check it out. So, Joe, let's talk about tips on using Longtail Pro, man. What's the best way to use Longtail Pro? What special things have you figured out while you've been using it?
One of the best ways to use it is for the competition analysis. Right now, sometimes when I look at a search engine results page or a SERP, it's like the Matrix. I can just read the code. I know whether it's going to be easy to rank for or difficult. But how I got to that stage was by having Longtail Pro open in one window and the search engine results page in the other, and comparing the two and seeing how a search engine really looks at that page and how it determines ranking, and if that's going to be a difficult page to rank on because of the number of inlinks, the PR for the pages, is there title match. All that is given to you in one little screen right on Longtail Pro.
Yeah, if you check out our keyword research strategy, part 2, you'll find that we rank competition on the first page. So if we put 5, it means it's very, very easy. We're going to nail it, no problem. We're going to own this, down to 1 where we suck and we're not going to be able to get this done. 5s and 1s are easy. 1s we wipe, 5s we're nailing down. It's the 3s and 4s that are difficult, right? I mean, the 3s are like, I don't know, I could do it, it could work, I'm not sure. But the 4s, we're pretty sure we can get it down. So I think Longtail Pro really helps determine that line and helps you figure out like the difference between 3 and 4 and really nail that down. So anyway, love Longtail Pro. You should definitely give it a look. So that's it for this first podcast of ours. Really excited to be putting it out. Our next podcast is going to be in about 2 weeks, and that podcast should be covering a bit more about our story and like what we're doing with AdSense Flippers, where we see it going, where we want to take it, and some of the things we're doing to really round it out and help bring in more from our site. So stay tuned, have a listen, and we'll see you next time around.
See you later, everybody.
You've been listening to the AdSense Flippers Podcast with Justin and Joe. Be sure to hit up AdSenseFlippers.com for more. That's AdSenseFlippers.com. Thanks for listening.